Hey, everybody, welcome to the rebuild. I am so excited for the guest that we have today. Today, we have joining us Akilah Willery. She is author of Melanated Midlife. I'm so glad that you're here. Akilah, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Tiffany. I can tell you that this feels like a reunion because we've had a conversation before and everybody just gets to witness us catching up, doing all the girlfriend things.
Yes, yes, exactly. I mean, I feel like once we met, it was just like we're kindred spirits. And so we just clicked immediately.
Yeah. And like I said, we're kind of we're swimming in the same pond, so we get to focus on the same things, and that is really cool.
Absolutely. You know what though? Not to dive right in, but since we're here, let's just get to it because one thing I do love about this is that when I was younger, a lot of women told me that I wouldn't make friends as an older, right? And so here we are, uplifting each other, being
Yeah.
friendly. But I remember this woman that I worked with. She was like, "Oh, you're not going to make friends as an adult." She was like, "Once you get past a certain age, you stop making friends." And I was like, "I can't believe that." And she was like, "Yeah." She's like, "You'll be friends with the," which to a certain extent is true. She was like, "You'll be friends with the parents of the children that your daughter goes to school with." She was like, "But
Hmm.
other than that, you're not going to you won't make friends." And she was like, "Adults don't make friends." So I love that. And I've heard that in other
Yeah.
places.
I've heard that
Yeah. So
too.
I love that we get together and
But that's the thing, you have to be once you recognize that as an adult, there's so many obstacles that get in the way of relationships, and I
mhm,
had to really come to terms with that, and I tell you, it was a book that I read, don't know if anybody else has read Mel Robbins' The Let Them Theory, and I
oh my
remember
gosh, so
the
good.
first time I picked up that book and I looked at the title, I'm like, "Let Them Theory? That's such a corny name," and
Mhm.
once got into it and started reading, and that's one of the things that she zeroed in on was adult friendships, and we sometimes will have this, I don't know, like, we only see it from our perspective that people have dropped off in our lives,
Right,
and we just assume that there's something wrong with them, they left
right.
me, they don't wanna talk to me anymore, they've built other friendships away from me. Honestly, it's just that the people that we see every day, the people that we intentionally pick up the phone and call or text or whatever, the communication channel is, those are the ones that we stay connected to. It's not
Yeah,
anybody's fault. Your kids, we do go with the people that have similar activities and circles, but like your kid could be on swim team this year and then my kid go to gymnastics, well then we're going to diverge at that point.
absolutely.
So situations like that and it made me more aware of how I need to give people grace
Yeah,
for not being in my circle, not being in my everyday whatever, and myself, give myself grace. Like, "Oh, I haven't talked to so and so in a year, she must think I'm a terrible person." And it's like, well,
absolutely. And also, I love that we get to cultivate the relationships that we want, any type of relationship. We get to
yep,
cultivate it. We get to pick up the phone and say, "Hey, girl, hey, let's go grab a coffee. I know we haven't spoken in 18 months, but that's fine. Let's chat really quickly, or
yeah.
let's get together." And it could be
And
just as
the
simple as that.
Yeah, the other person's gonna be, "Oh, I'm so glad to hear from you." They're not gonna be like, "Oh, you know what? I've been looking at the calendar. It has been 67 days since you last called me."
That's true. That is true. Well, I mean, before we dive in too deeply, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves to the Rebuild family? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I like to call myself a midlife reinvention strategist, and it is mostly focusing on women that have reached midlife and they suddenly have forgotten to look out for their own goals and their own desires. And it's just like, okay, you know what? You actually have a chance to do a complete reset. You have a chance to start living midlife by design instead of by default. And anybody that is sitting at age 50 and beyond, and they're thinking that, you know what, I wish I would have done so and so, or it's too late for me to build this hobby or go after this career, or downsize my home. Those are the people where I like to meet them at that crossroads. As soon as they start thinking, what if? Or could this be too late? I want to just come right in there with a number one, a big hug and say, no, girl, you are in the right place. You are questioning all the right things. Let's build a plan so that you can start realizing some of that. This whole midlife season is a very I'll say it's a very short window of time, and I don't mean that in a morbid sense, but I mean, once we hit 50, I mean, you can start looking at how many Christmases you have left, how many times years with your parents if you're lucky enough to still have both your parents. And
Mhm.
that's when we really need to get intentional and say, "Okay, you know what? I think I do wanna take that trip to Italy by myself." Or I
Right.
wanna, get rid of this super expensive car that I really don't like. I'm just driving it because everybody thinks I should drive it. Those sorts of things. And really having them think selfishly. And that is a word that I embrace 100%. Be selfish and think of yourself first. And then once you think of yourself first, you take care of yourself, you nurture whatever those dreams are, you become a more full person to be there for the loved ones and the other relationships that can thrive in your life, especially in this season.
I love that. I love that. And I think your brand is it's so inspiring, it's so uplifting. I think especially for women in this age range and just people in general who really want to do something different. We're really looking to have you help them strategize for their what's next. And
Yeah.
you spoke so beautifully about melanated midlife and it makes me think what made you realize that you were the one to deliver this work?
It was completely personal. And I will admit to anybody that is watching this or tunes in to other things where they hear me speak is that you are witnessing my midlife transition in real time. I have not arrived at a destination, but I am definitely on the journey. And everything that I start thinking, I think this might be the time to try that, or this might be the time to explore. It's coming from a very personal place because my husband and I, when we turned 50, actually, when we were leading up to turning 50, we started looking around our home, which we were prepping to be empty nesters. We've got two sons that are away at college right now. And that house was just a bit too much for two
Yeah,
people that
yeah,
didn't want to clean it, that didn't
yeah.
want to pay. Our highest energy bill was $700 at one point.
Wow.
And it was just like, y'all can have this. you
Yeah,
know? So
absolutely.
we started plotting and planning for our downsize. And that downsize went from a big suburban home for, a four-person family. And we shrunk it down to half the square footage and moved to a high rise apartment. And that downsize experience pretty much was the catalyst for all of this platform that I stand on right now, because it just completely shifted my perspective on everything. It changed the way we went through daily life because it was a full act of letting go. And so much of our lives, our professional lives, as grown-ups, we accumulate, we get things, we buy, we just take on a lot, whether it's material things, if it's guilt, relationships, health problems, we just accumulate so much. And when we started that home downsizing, everything, I started questioning all of the investments, whether it was certain relationships that had pretty much run their course, if it was, for me, my professional journey. I was in a career for 23 years that was no longer what I wanted to do.
Right.
I had a good time during that 23 years, but once I hit a certain point, I was like, I've gone as far as I want to go. And it just kind of unlocked so much with the way I had been programmed, for 2 decades, and it was just like, "Okay, I think I wanna try these other things," and then you become a kid in the candy store, and you're just like, "Well, if I can do this, maybe I can try this other thing, and if this works, maybe I've got time to do this other thing," and it just kept snowballing until, here we are talking about it a few years later, and I got all kind of lessons that I'm wanting to share with people. And I'm just like, girl, you can offload all of those things so that you then have more space in your life to bring in all of those delayed goals or desires that you've put off because you were busy taking care of somebody else or somebody else's expectations.
Did you have a particular moment that was just that moment that that made you say just made you understand that you are essentially the melanated midlife, right? Like you're experiencing it, but just that moment that said, "I have a message to share."
And it wasn't expected because when we initially started this whole shift, especially with the home downsize, we had a lot of people, family, close friends, people that we truly loved and trusted and still do. We valued their opinions. And when we first said, okay, we're selling this house and we're going to move to something smaller, da da da, whatever. And, you know, all the questions came, some criticisms, because we have been programmed to buy a house and live there, pay it off, do all the things. And when you decide that you want to diverge from that, people are going to question. They're going to be like, well, what if you suddenly need an extra bedroom? What if, you need a backyard for whatever reason? And then in the conversations, it started to shift. Instead of people saying, oh, you're going to regret it or that's the worst decision ever, then they started questioning, well, hey, how did you do that? How does it feel? I'm curious. What about XYZ? Did you da da da? And so the questions shifted just from criticism to true curiosity. And that's when we realize, oh, we're not the only ones. Other people have these questions in their heads. And after having that same conversation again and again with loved ones that truly were, like I said, they were curious, they were worried about us. You're doing this radical thing. And we just don't want you to end up, like old folks say, just dead in the ditch somewhere. So
Yeah, yeah.
it became more structured when I realized that people had the same questions. They had the same curiosities about what was possible in this empty nester midlife season. And that's when I started going, because I'm a nerd, I'm a former educator. So I took notes on every doggone thing. I've got spreadsheets for the
I
most
love it.
ridiculous things that you can imagine. So I took all of that information and organized it into my first book. And that was truly just a small ebook that gave everybody the spreadsheets, the budgets, the questions to start answering for yourself to reflect if you were truly ready to do that sort of thing. And it just continued. So it was just like, okay, the book was one thing. Let's get up there and let's talk about it. And that led to a podcast. And then the podcast led to a second book. And now it's all, it's a whole thing where I'm actually coaching people to figure out what their midlife dreams are. And it has been fun.
Yeah, yeah. It looks like you're having a great time. You look like you're having fun. You look
Too
like you're
much.
having fun. And so, I mean, I missed the book release, um, party, just the book release party. I got my book. But it looks like you all had an amazing time. We're
Yeah.
gonna talk about it later on. I wanna dig into that a little bit, but there's something that you said, you used a word that really sparked my interest. You said the word radical, because what you were doing, I guess what you and your husband were doing might have been considered unconventional.
Yeah.
Yeah, to some families. What do you think are the misconceptions or the myths about what you do, like, what you did? Like, why do you think people might have thought that it was different or unconventional, or what are the misconceptions out there that you wanna set straight?
I think probably the biggest misconception is that home ownership is not the only way to build wealth. And it,
Could
you
you
know,
say
I
it
will
again
say,
for people in the
yeah,
back? One more time, but
it's true. Yeah, because that's what we were taught, you know?
yeah,
It's not a bad lesson to tell folks, because of course, real estate is a great investment.
absolutely, absolutely.
It doesn't necessarily have to just be your personal homestead as the only way to build wealth. And I think that was the biggest question with people, again, that loved and cared about us and thought we were making a huge financial blunder.
Yeah,
And so we spent a lot of time talking to folks about that, where, with your home ownership, and again, it is a personal decision of which direction that you want to go. We had been homeowners for 20, let me think, I'm do the quick math, 26 years. So it's not like we were saying no to something we had no experience with. We had purchased multiple homes, because we'd moved from one side of town to the other side of town, and things like that, upgraded the house, done the renovations, all the things. And
right.
when we decided, you know what? Well, and I'll take that back. It was actually my husband that made a comment. And again, we're middle aged folks in the Houston, Texas heat and humidity, where it truly is, triple digits in the summer when you are trying to make your yard look beautiful and lush. And he made a statement about how so much of his weekend was just about lawn care. And that was exhausting. He wasn't able to enjoy it. You spend all that time working for something to be pretty for the people that are driving by for a split second. And I mean, he's somebody that took a lot of pride in the way our house looked, the curb appeal and everything. And I say this because we did a good job. I'm, patting myself on the back, and I did nothing with that lawnmower. But when he, outsourced to lawn care for a couple of years and he was able to get his weekends back, it just kind of made me start thinking, it's like, we got to make this a lot easier. We can't, I
Yeah,
don't want to do this into our 60s and our 70s. And for some folks, that's a good thing. They love it. I didn't want that. I wanted to take my husband out to a jazz club. I want to go shopping. I want to sit up at a coffee shop or go take an afternoon movie or whatever, not being in the heat doing all this yard work. And
absolutely.
so, anyway, it's a long roundabout answer to just, saying that home ownership is not the only way to build wealth. There are ways to invest in other things. There are ways to get your money making money that has nothing to do with your homestead. Once you take house ownership off the table, you start to, think of other ways to build wealth and still have your weekends, have your evenings, still have retirement taken care of. And that was something that I think we were able to share with other folks that were willing to listen. I'm not trying to preach and put my personal opinion on anybody else's life. That's exactly the opposite. I think that people should explore what is best for them, not just because we were all taught this in, one big block once upon a time. And let me also say, here I go again preaching, because as somebody Black in America, that was something that was denied our people for a very long time,
Yeah,
being able to get a home loan and being able to have a beautiful home that you can build up and pass on to family or whatever one day. Yes, I get that. But I also say that, there's other ways to pass on a legacy or
absolutely.
pass on whatever to your family and still be okay financially.
Yeah, because I think ultimately what we want to do for our children and we've wanted to do for ourselves is provide a way for them to have options, right? So you
Mhm,
can have the option. Yes, if you want to be a homeowner and you think that great, you have all the options available to you as opposed to just having fewer options. And I think that that's what you're taking advantage of a different option. Yeah, but
mhm.
you have the options available that you can choose. There are some people who cannot, right? There are some
Yeah,
people who are living in a home that maybe a grandparent or a parent purchased, and they really have no other option. They have to stay
mhm,
in that home for whatever reasons. Maybe they can't afford to move, or they don't understand the process of selling a home or renting a home to someone else.
mhm.
I think the main thing is that, having options is a good thing.
And I'll tell you, adding to that, and this is gonna sound very opposite of the whole point that I was making, but one thing that I'm fascinated with, 2 different things that I'm fascinated with right now. One, multi-generational homes. I love seeing families that are redesigning their homes so that everybody has their own primary suite, kind of. I'm seeing that happen with a lot of home renovations, and I really love it. Speaking of investment opportunities, but then on the opposite end of the spectrum, I'm also really fascinated with tiny homes. I'm seeing that in places
I
where they look cute.
love tiny homes. Like, I'm seriously considering a tiny home. Like, I love to your point earlier, like, been there, done that. I don't wanna have to clean all these bathrooms. I don't wanna have to do all this stuff. I don't wanna have to rake these leaves. I don't want the least I can do, the better, the better.
Yep.
I want, like, that minimalist lifestyle where I get to enjoy a lot of life. Of course, I want a beautiful home. I want my surroundings to be beautiful, but there's so much stuff or junk that we just don't
Yeah.
need, and I plan to get rid of it. Like, I don't wanna keep it around.
Yeah. And as women, one thing that, because with ladies that I coach, there's always, it's amazing when people talk about downsizing. They think about the stuff, and it is about the stuff, but the impact is emotional.
Yes.
And I don't have it in front of me. I did quote some research in the book because our generation, Gen X specifically, so much about our upbringing was, I'm going to call it during the commercial age where, we were in front of TVs, cable
Yeah,
television,
yeah.
MTV, Saturday morning cartoons, and
Mhm.
the whole culture of ads and marketing being bombarded with that our entire lives. And so it led to this mass consumerism that if there's a new iPhone coming out, even if it looks exactly like the iPhone you have, we got to rush out and get a new iPhone. And it's just like, but why? Why am I spending $1,000 on a device that does exactly what the one in my pocket does? But that's
Absolutely.
that's how our brains have now been wired,
Yeah.
and it leads to this accumulation of a lot of things that are nice and shiny for a hot 5 minutes, and then it goes into a closet. And you're talking about minimalism. I got something else I got fascinated with while we were going through our downsize is if you've never read the book, and I'm gonna misquote it, but the gentleman, it was a team of young men that actually wrote this. And I remember one of them saying that the idea of minimalism first came to him when he was cleaning out his dead mother's house and storage unit, and
Goodness.
she had kept pretty much everything, some very sentimental, beautiful things like, coloring projects from when he was a little boy, but just masses of things that sadly meant more to her than they did to him. So, of course, with him being the survivor and having to deal with her estate, he felt very sad that basically he was just gonna have to trash all of that. And so it made him rethink, what am I holding on to that I'm possibly gonna leave as a burden for my kids because it's just consumerism. We're just buying stuff and, throwing it in a drawer and, when it's no longer useful to us. And it just kind of makes you rethink. It's like, do I really want to buy this next thing? And possibly it lose its shine quicker than the hunt to go and buy it. So,
Right.
I mean, those types of things weigh on me right now because I'm not a big shopper as a result of that. I don't wanna go into Target and fill up my basket anymore, and I used to be that girl. Target
Yeah.
used to be my therapy,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah, I
I
get it,
showed
I
up
get it,
faithfully.
I get it, I get it. No, I totally get it, I totally get it. I feel
Yeah.
exactly the same way. I feel exactly the same way. I think what this has also allowed me to do is to really be with the things that I really, really love and identify the things that I really, really love because I try to keep only the things that I really, really love. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And with the things that in this season, you know what you like. That's another thing is that we're hopefully not in a frame of mind where we're trying to keep up with the Joneses like we used to. Because, when we're 30, we think we have to do everything that everybody else is doing. If they
Oh, my.
buy a brand new Lexus, we're going to buy a brand new Lexus.
Right.
If they buy a $1,000 pinstripe suit, I got to buy a
Mhm.
$1,000 pinstripe suit, even if I got nowhere to wear it. It's all of the things, we're just copying and keeping up and trying to impress other people who may or may not even care what we're
They don't
doing.
care. They don't care. They're not
Yeah,
thinking about us at all. Everyone's
yeah,
wrapped up in their own lives. They have their own things going on. They're not thinking about what we have or what we don't have. And honestly, if they are, those aren't the people that I want to be friends with. Yeah, I
yeah.
don't want to be friends with people that are obsessed with other people. Yeah.
Say, "Oh,
That's
they're
just
so
a little
obsessed with
weird.
me."
It's a little weird. And so I think that speaks to for me, I think it speaks to, I have like a certain level of confidence about who I am now. And a result, part of it is the result of us getting older, just having lived certain experiences and having lived life a certain way. So I think I have this
Yeah.
really unshakable confidence that lends to me being successful. So I wondered, like, what
Mm.
have you seen develop in your character as a result of this process, as a result of you downsizing and changing your life completely?
I can tell you that I see so many things are different with my perspective right now. And I tell you that number one, I am in a season of selfishness, which I alluded to that earlier, but I feel like as a Black woman, it is so much more urgent for us to be intentional with how we protect our peace, how we rest. And this pursuit of joy that I believe was somehow maybe put off as frivolous or not important in other phases of our lives, or maybe even other parts of our history where we were just expected to keep pushing, to keep doing. And every time I hear somebody describe someone as a strong Black woman, I just recoil these
Yeah,
days because it used to be something that, we were proud to say, I'm a strong Black woman. I can do for myself. And now I'm just like, girl, go take a nap.
right,
Go get your
right,
nails done.
right.
Go take that vacation. You want to go out to whatever beautiful restaurant and have the most expensive glass of wine? Do it,
Yeah,
and have that something that is just this desire to chase joy. And if I don't have any other message that I want to land with people, especially with Black women, it is to have that relentless pursuit of joy. Never stop pursuing joy. And as we come into this season where we've probably climbed the ladder in our careers, we are probably earning the most money that we're ever going to make. We've probably done all of the things that you would check a box of adulting would include. Step back and look at what you want to do. Take a look at what is going to put a smile on your face at the end of the day. Think about
yeah,
how you can be kinder and more graceful to your spirit every single day. Because nobody else is coming to your front door to say, hey, Tiffany, it's okay for you to do this fun thing. Hey, Tiffany, you deserve to smile and have a little bit of time to relax this season. That is not anybody else's job. It is your job. It needs to be your primary job.
absolutely.
And before we step back and say, "Oh, but I gotta take care of this and that and, all of these other people," yes, you are able to still do that even if you take only 15 minutes for yourself each day. And I
And
will
so if we're
stand on
talking
that hill forever.
practically, yeah, if we're talking practically and intentionally, what could those 15 minutes a day look like? What's the practice that you use to be intentional around rest and intentional around cultivating joy?
Well, for sure, I am intentional about going to bed on time. I do have some days where I can't be right at my bedtime. And I used to be kind of nerdy to say, oh, I go to bed at 10 o'clock or 10:30 or whatever. I say that proudly now, child. I wish you could tattoo it on my forehead. I get 8
Yes.
hours every
Yeah.
night. Be
Yeah.
jealous because I will definitely lay my behind down, even if I got to read a book or count backwards from 100 or whatever. I am going to bed on time to make sure I get my sleep. The other
Yeah.
thing, and I say this as a menopausal woman, that there could be anything during the day, every other 5 minutes, where my moods, my hormones, everything is just short circuiting. And one thing I've been able to do is daily walks that have
Oh, that's
not
so
really
good.
been fitness focused. Yes, I do get the fitness benefit of it, but my mindset is about let me go outside and get away from screens. Let me go
Nice.
outside and get away from all the devices, the phone calls, the text messages, whatever it may be that's trying to steal my energy and my attention. And even if that is just taking my dog for a walk for 20 minutes, maybe I'm able to get to the park and do a full hour. I've noticed that that makes a ton of difference with the person that I'm able to be for other people in my life. I just come back like somebody has just shot me up with some calm and energy after I've done
Oh,
that.
that's so good.
And something else, and it sounds nerdy again, I have to be intentional about what I'm eating. Because of the menopause, your girl cannot do sugar like she used to. Yeah. Ooh, and I'm somebody where I never met a piece of chocolate that was not the love of my life.
Yeah.
And I've had to pull back on a lot of
Right.
those things. I have not been able to get rid of coffee, so I still allow myself that vice,
Love
but
a
I have
coffee.
to make sure that I'm drinking enough water, I'm getting enough protein, I'm not taking in a bunch of sugar, and the times when I'm real loose with that and I do whatever I want, I feel it. And
Yeah.
am I perfect? No. But do I think twice before I bite into whatever it is in front of me just for that momentary satisfaction? Yeah, it makes me think a little bit more about it. So if there's any women that are listening to this and they're just like, I really need to stop drinking the soda, or I know I should stop doing XYZ, pick one.
Pick
Pick
one.
one to
Just
just
start. Just
slowly
get
start backing
started.
away from it. Yeah, and you might feel differently. And it's not about losing weight. Yes, we have some battles to fight with that, but think of it more about what it is that you are just kind of giving your energy away to, and you might see it a little bit differently. And for me, like I said, once I was able to flip the switch mentally about what was on the other side of those vices, it made a big difference.
I love that. I love that. It really does. It really does make a difference. And I love that those are all things that cost nothing. Costs nothing to go to bed earlier. It costs you nothing but some time to go for a walk, take in some fresh air, get your body moving. Akilah, thank you
Absolutely.
so much. Thank you. I really appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
The Rebuild
I
family,
appreciate it,
thank you
Tiffany.
so much for joining us today. I'm glad that we had an opportunity to be together. Be sure to go to Melanated Midlife on Instagram, on LinkedIn. Anywhere else? Is there anywhere else?
Yeah, everywhere, melanatedmidlife.com, and leave a message. I mean, I always remind people that it's a real person behind that. So leave a message. Let me know what's on
Leave a
your mind.
message. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. Thanks again. Bye, everybody.